ladies and gentlemen. We are going to listen to Dr. Umut Yıldız, who serves as an astrophysicist at NASA JPL. Actually, he is the kind of person who addresses topics we call rocket science with simplicity, and our Beliz Kudat had actually, as an editor of our magazine, she is having this interview with him. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, I'm sure you are curious about what Umut will be sharing with us. I would like to start without further ado. Welcome, Umut. Hi. When it comes to space exploration and astrophysics, research, what kind of an impact do they have in terms of creating communities, and what does NASA do in terms of creating innovative projects by including communities? Well, they held certain interviews with the astronauts, as you know, who go visit the space and come back, so they compare their physical lives with Earth, with what they have in Earth and there, and they also conduct researches about their psychological state, and they generally observe this. In astronauts, they say increased sense of universalism is commonplace, and as part of this observation, they state that in a short period of time you go up, you go to the International Space Station, which is like just 400 or 500 kilometers above the ground, and you just examine the Earth, which actually stands right before you, and you keep moving very fast, or let's say the Earth is moving as you keep moving, depending on where you are. And when you look at the entire Earth, you say, we are so tiny in the middle of the universe. That's the sort of experience you have. You have all the countries within 1 pixel right before your eyes, rather than with boundaries. You see these city lights, but one city looks like a piece of pixel to your eye. In this moment of awakening, people start dedicating themselves to universalism, or universal way of interpreting things. And what is even greater is that as they keep going up, I mean, just when you compare it 100 years ago, people were not enjoying the comfort of getting aboard and traveling very comfortably. But this is not the case today. Everyone can fly comfortably and look from above. So if you go one level higher, then it's a completely different story than flying with an airplane. And NASA has this sort of actually impact on the humanity with its initiatives, or can have such impact. We always say that we live within a bubble. For example, I have this many people around me, and I'm not engaging with a lot of many others. And this is the case of life. This is the sort of life you may be leading for your entire lifetime. And when you encounter a completely different person, you say, is it really like that? Why? Because you are limited to your own bubble. And that's how we view the world. We consider that the entire world represents the universe, and we are not even aware of the size of the universe. And because that is the case, we start assuming that actually we are the sort of the species that makes a huge difference in the universe. But that's not the case. When you look at our galaxy, you see that there are 400 billions of suns, and our sun is just one of them. And there are 8 galaxies, 8 planets around our sun. So when you look at the entire galaxy, you see smart creatures living on a particle of dust. Yes. So now we are able to see other destinations in the universe through a telescope. We are able to acknowledge those locations, but still with that awareness, we tend to say, I'm better than you, I was born here, I have this status, and we conflict with others. Actually, there is no place for conflict in such a gigantic universe. I mean, we are talking about 800 or 100 years of lifespans. So NASA or other astrophysics physics projects can increase this feeling of universalism among individuals, in my opinion, so that we can come back to our senses in our daily hustle and bustle, if I may. So, from this premise, you say that these observations may lead to further cooperation with an awareness of our magnitude in the universe. Such a great introduction. But I'm curious about this. You are working in a very important role in an important institution like NASA. As a person from Turkey, you have a great ecosystem and you keep interacting with your students. Sometimes you appear on social media, or you appear in physical stages to connect with other people. So how do you think your presence motivates these youths? How do you think you set them in motion? And can you tell us what we need to do in terms of enhancing such interactions, as you play surely an important role? And how do you do that? Well, it's generally in the eyes of the seeker, if I may. First, you need to have a curiosity. A student must have a curiosity, and they manage to, reach out to me. They send messages and they try to communicate through other means. My impact may be about my instantaneous use of social media, if I may. What am I doing? Well, and there is this thing. In Turkey, they always keep the news from Norway, right? We keep changes in Turkey all the time, though. I mean, when you read a piece of article, that becomes obsolete tomorrow. So I think there is no journalist who would say, let me address it tomorrow. That is the situation with Turkey, and we see a similar thing in news coverage about the science and universe. Everything develops so fast that in a week's time, not even a week, not maybe in a day's time, but in a week's time, everything may be obsolete. Or if you say you wanna address that in a month's time, it may become way too outdated. That's why I believe scientists should ensure that they use social media if they want to be involved in science-focused communication. The faster you use, the better you keep up with the people, the better your impact will be, in my opinion. So the students or youths you want to motivate, you want to inspire, can at least enjoy your contributions. That is what I'm currently doing, because as I stated, everything develops so rapidly, and actually, I'm not doing things with a big difference. What do their parents say? You study hard, you do this, you do that. Actually, what I'm doing is not very different than what parents lecture their children. People may not encounter astrophysicists in their lives. That question applies to you as well, right? We are small in numbers. I mean, otherwise you may well encounter people like mine, but because we are in small numbers, people actually, if they are curious about space issues, they may say this is a very far-fetched profession, so let's not get involved in any details of it if they cannot access any person. And when their parents say, what kind of a profession is that? It's difficult to be involved in, then their motivation goes down, and that's where I get into play. Actually, this is a great point, that communication is invaluable. You're definitely right. Our audience may not be aware, but when we enter the studio here, our people in the background, in the production studio, even told us that they follow you. So we know that you contact different segments of the society. And I'm sure people want to hear certain things from you. These might be people who want to be astrophysicists or people who want to contribute to the development of, a spacecraft and other relevant utilities. So what kind of advice and recommendations can you make for such audience? Let me put it this way. As I studied at the high school and the university, let me go all the way back to high school. Nobody foresaw that we would have such a future in science studies. The internet was just nascent, and people wouldn't think of being able to reach out to an astrophysicist or such. You needed to go to a university in Ankara or Istanbul and speak with the professors. That's not the case anymore. We are in a completely different state. Everything materializes so fast that just like we normalize getting on board with an airplane, we will actually start talking about getting on a space shuttle, although that is the case, or let's say enjoying a space lunch, a spacecraft lunch, or a missile rocket lunch very frequently, because it is launched from somewhere like Europe, Asia, or America all the time. So what I'm trying to say that people will be able to travel to space in several years. So whenever there is a launch event, we see people broadcasting about such launches, or interpret that into Turkish, and we're going to see that it's gonna be commonplace soon. SpaceX will have a Starship rocket, which is eminent. When it's completed, and I'm sure this is gonna be completed this or that year, and China is building a counterpart. When they are operational, people will start seeing that they can be used for commercial purposes, and other companies will start to follow suit, and you will see that humanity will be carried to different destinations in space. I think before our lifetime expires, we will see hotels in space, and maybe we will have a holiday in one of the instances. Sometimes you complain about an airplane taking off with a delay. You keep asking about the captain and such, right? Can you say that for a rocket? Can you say this is my rocket and it has a delay of 30 minutes? So you wouldn't imagine making such complaints about airplanes 100 years ago. And so you say that it's gonna be easier to work in these fields? Definitely. We will need more people. We will need way too more people. And here we have other stuff, not just the pilots in aviation, right? Technicians and such, who provide ancillary services. So everyone wants to be a space engineer or an astronaut or an astrophysicist, currently speaking. But we need people for other ancillary services. It's gonna be a very big industry, and this is gonna have a huge proportion in the future. That's why we should not miss out on it. So we should not tell our children that there is no future in it. That's gonna be a huge mistake. Let me say it in advance, because before our lifetime, I'm sure we're going to see hotels in the space if these two rockets get completed. So can we say this with a peace of mind? They should follow you very closely, Mr. Umut, so that they can avail of your inputs. Well, that would be great. We were with astrophysicist Umut Yıldız. He gave us great insights as well as inspiration. Thank you for your participation. No, thank you.